How do you ruin your prayer life? Hey everybody, welcome to today's Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional. How do you ruin your prayer life? Or conversely, how do you make sure that your prayer life isn't ruined? Well, to answer that question today, I want to ask you this. Have you ever been in a relationship with somebody and perhaps you've had a conflict, something happened, there was a misunderstanding, some disappointment, some unmet expectation, and somebody comes into that context and says, hey, you really screwed up. And they've got this mindset that they see the whole picture. They've got this omni perspective that perhaps is a bit godlike, and they come in and they say, hey, I know why you did this. I know what you did. You screwed up. You hurt me, and you need to fix it right away. You ever been on the receiving end of something like that? Where does that leave you? Kind of in a tough spot, right? It leaves you in a difficult place. You either become defensive and sort of push back hard against that person, or you become morbidly introspective and you just let them roll all over you. Either way, at the end of the day, the relationship is ruined. It's really put into jeopardy, and it takes a ton of care and a ton of work to restore that relationship. Friends, it's the same way in a relationship with God. When we come to our relationship with God, when we come to God in prayer, and we come saying, hey, I've got it all figured out, I know everything, I can see the whole picture, and God, you need to lock in, and you need to do what I tell you right now in my way, or else I'm hitting the highway. Friends, that's damaging. That'll ruin your prayer life. But conversely, friends, when we acknowledge that God knows more than we do, when we acknowledge that there's something for us to learn, even in our own disappointment and frustration, maybe even with God, when we come to God with humility and we come to God asking for His perspective, it actually does the converse. It does the opposite of ruining a prayer life. It deepens our prayer life. And to give you an example, I want to bring you to Psalm 139 today. It's a rich psalm. I encourage you to read the whole thing if you have time. But today I want to focus on just a few verses that'll give you the idea for what's going on in this psalm. It's a psalm of David. And here at the beginning, David is crying out to the Lord. And in verses 1 through 6, this is what he says. He says, O Lord, you've searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from afar. You search out my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, behold, O Lord, you know it altogether. You hem me in, behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It's high. I cannot attain it. Friends, what's David doing here? Well, he is going to make a request of the Lord. He is going to even offer a complaint to the Lord. But the first thing he does is he acknowledges, hey, God, I recognize our place here. I don't have it all figured out. I actually know that your ways are much higher than mine. And of course, this is different than conflict in a human relationship. In a human relationship, both people are clearly fallible, right? Both people can make mistakes. Both people can have a wrong perspective. But what David acknowledges in a relationship with God is that God actually doesn't have the wrong perspective. God knows everything, and he beautifully acknowledges that. And in verse 6, he says, such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It's high. I cannot attain it. What David is recognizing is that God knows him better than he knows himself. And friends, as we talk about how to pray to God, it strikes me that that's really wise, to say to God, look, I know you know more than I do, even about myself. And so this is how I feel, but I start by acknowledging I trust you with everything, including even how I feel about this situation. Now, David doesn't shy away from making his request to God. In fact, look at verse 19 and following. He says, oh, that you would slay the wicked. God, that you'd be done with them. O men of blood, depart from me. They speak against you with malicious intent. Your enemies take your name in vain. Do I not hate those who hate you, O Lord? And do I not loathe those who rise up against you? I hate them with complete hatred. I count them my enemies. David's using some strong language. And do you think he's experienced some difficult conflicts, some difficult pain in his life? Yeah, you bet. He doesn't avoid bringing those things to the Lord. But friends, again, he starts with acknowledging this is who God is. He's not trying to prove himself. He's trying to reckon himself to God and his desires in these specific situations. And he finishes in this glorious way. He avails himself to God's initiative and God's perspective. And he says in verse 23, search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any grievous way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. Friends, David gets it. God, I don't have it all figured out. I don't know all that's going on. I'm struggling. But God, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to share with you honestly what I'm struggling with. But then I'm going to invite you. Help me sort this out. Are my feelings correct? Is there offensiveness in me? Is there a grievous way in my heart? God, if there is, expose it and lead me in the way everlasting. Friends, it strikes me that in our prayers, if we take that attitude to God in prayer, it's going to strengthen our prayer life. It's going to deepen our prayer life. But we can ruin our prayer life by coming to God and saying, God, I actually want to dictate to you how this is going to go. And let me tell you my perspective, which is the only perspective I'm going to listen to. Friends, that'll ruin our prayer life. That'll create distance between us and God. Friends, let's not ruin our prayer life. Let's press into God today. Let's acknowledge our need for Him to search us and to try us and then to lead us in the way that is everlasting. God bless you today, friend. God bless your prayer life, and may seeking Him become your first and best impulse. May it be true for all of us today. God bless. See you soon.